Widows is the new film by director Steve McQueen. He also wrote this film with Gillian Flynn. You might recognize her name as the novelist who wrote Gone Girl. She is not basing Widows off of a book of hers. This is actually based off of an old BBC show of the same name, and in this one, a group of widows get together after their husbands are killed during a heist, and their heist actually has huge implications on an upcoming election coming up between Colin Farrell and Brian Tyree Henry. And Brian Tyree Henry is basically forcing these girls to get the money that was stolen from him back, or else they're gonna have to pay for it with their lives. I recently saw two other Steve McQueen movies for the very first time. Shame, loved it. It's such a great movie. It's such an interesting character study. A great performance from Michael Fassbender. 12 Years a Slave was even better than Shame in my eyes. There's so many great directing moments, cinematography moments, so many great acting moments in that one. Another great performance from Michael Fassbender. So I instantly became more excited for Widows because of Steve McQueen and also because it has a stacked cast. And seeing how great performances can come from a Steve McQueen movie, I was very interested to see what he could do with the actors in this film. And I gotta say, Widows is the most underappreciated movie to come out this entire year, because it got a lot of critical praise, but it doesn't have enough financial success on its hands. Like, it's not doing that well at the box office, and that's a huge shame, because more people should really go out and see this, because it's quite a movie. It is such a spectacular movie. Gillian Flynn and Steve McQueen came together and wrote a story that at first you might think you know where it's going, but then certain things are revealed about certain people, and all of a sudden things start to change, and you start to look at certain characters differently, and you start to see their motivations a little bit differently. In that sense, this movie actually subverted my expectations for the better, because all of a sudden what I thought was just going to be these girls pulling off a heist actually became a little bit more important than just girls doing a heist. There's actually certain personal reasons as to why this heist needs to be successful for some of them. I can't really delve into anything spoiler-wise, because I really do think you should go into this film as blind as possible, so I'm not going to get too specific with this film, but it's so fantastically riveting. Every single actor in this film brought their A-game. Viola Davis is spectacular in this one. She commands the screen every time she's on it. She has such a great character to play here, and seeing how her character evolves is just, it's so wonderful. And it sucks that her work in this film is really going to get overlooked by a lot of other people. Like, she really nails it. She's one of the best actresses working today. But there are actually a couple actresses that caught me off guard. For one, Michelle Rodriguez. I was a little worried about her casting because I pretty much only know her for like Machete or Fast and the Furious, and I didn't know if her acting was really going to blend in well here, but it really did. Like, she was able to stand on her own amongst this crowd of really talented people. Like, she really did offer a good performance. But also, Elizabeth Debicki, she was fantastic here. And I've seen her before in a couple other movies, but she really kind of impressed me in this one. She's got a really great character to play that is really damaged in a lot of ways, and she has to overcome them throughout the course of the film, and that was just really great to see. She's such a great character, and her performance just really sells this character. Another performance I really liked in this film was Colin Farrell's role as Jack Mulligan. He's running for alderman in Chicago, and he was really good here. Like, as usual, Colin Farrell is usually great in many things, so no big surprise there. He just worked really well with everyone he had to work with. But also Brian Tyree Henry, who's running against Colin Farrell, he had a really good role, because he's running against Colin Farrell and he's trying to do good for the city. At least that's what he promises in his political campaigns, but he also has to get a little menacing when he kind of threatens the widows to get his money back. And that was one thing I actually didn't know going into this movie. I didn't know they were going to focus on like a political race, but they actually did, and actually made it really interesting, at least as far as how the heist affects them and how it kind of works into them getting elected, and seeing how the rest of the film progresses, how the widows' planned heist will also affect them. And it does what I really like to hear about in politics, is that they go into the dark side of it a bit and portray it as a little bit more grimy and dirty, and I love that whenever I see that in a lot of movies and shows. And to come out of this dark political world that they have here comes Daniel Kaluuya's character, Jatem. He was, wow. Daniel Kaluuya, he's probably my favorite performance in the entire film. Like, Viola Davis and Elizabeth Debicki have really great roles here, and everyone else does too, but Daniel Kaluuya is scary in this film. He has two scenes in this movie that may go down in history as some of the most well-filmed, well-executed like crime intimidation scenes ever. Like, he does some really scary stuff, and he's a really scary guy. He was able to, as an actor, transform himself into that scary, evil guy that we see, and I loved him. Every time he was on screen, I couldn't get enough of his character. You see Get Out and like, oh, what a nice man, then you see this like, oh god, he's so scary. But he was great, he really nailed it. So the acting is all fantastic, the story is so riveting, especially when it does get into specific twists later on in the game. The lead up to the heist is portrayed very realistically, as far as from the perspective of these women who have no idea what they're doing, but they're trying to make it work no matter what. So it helped me get more involved with the story, because I wasn't watching these women who have never done heisting before just all of a sudden get it like, yeah, we know what we're doing. Like, no, they were struggling to prep it, and even when they do get to the heist later in the film, no spoilers, but certain things don't really go their way. This honestly is one of my favorite screenplays of the year, just because of how surprising it did end up being at a couple places and how realistic McQueen and Gillian Flynn decided to take it. If I had to have one issue though with the story though, is that near the end of the film, they wrap up a couple storylines kind of satisfactory, but then there's some other stuff that is kind of left open and they don't really conclude it in the best way. A couple things that just aren't mentioned at all, but then something that's mentioned but they don't really delve into it like enough, you know, because it involves certain characters that you kind of need to see before the movie ends. But other than that one flaw I have with this movie, I really love this. It's got one of my favorite screenplays of the year, some of my favorite performances of this year, with Daniel Kaluuya, Colin Farrell, Elizabeth Debicki, Viola Davis, and even Liam Neeson, who's in it briefly. He's also really good here, and seeing how he and Viola Davis interact is very interesting to me. Because like I said, this movie doesn't go exactly the way that you'd expect. And seeing how certain things evolve in the plot just had me more and more invested in it. This is such a riveting film from start to finish. The way Steve McQueen decides to open this film is just perfect, you know? Like, he knows how to craft a film just so well, and I just continue to look forward to whatever he does next, because he's just such a bright director who makes so many great choices when it comes to these movies. Certain editing choices he makes, certain story choices he makes, certain choices when it comes to the long takes that he does. Like, he's just such a great, talented dude. I'm gonna give Widows an A. Other than the ending maybe could have been just a little bit better with certain ways they wrap up the storylines, I was really fully invested with this film. I loved all the actors, I loved all the characters. There's so many great directing moments, there's so many great writing moments. Like, there's one shot that happens where Colin Farrell's like driving from one neighborhood to the next, and it's like, oh my god, like just the fact that it's a long one-take shot, but also what this shot kind of represents, like, it's so fantastic. This is so much more than just let's get together and heist someone kind of movie. It's much more than just that kind of movie. This movie actually has certain other important kind of things to say, and that's why I really do think more people should have gone out to see this. It's so underappreciated. It's such a well-made, well-written, well-acted film. Go check it out if you haven't already. But if you've seen Widows, leave in the comments below what you thought of it, and as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.